good evening, or perhaps good morning would be more fitting. It's about 2:30 a.m. The year of our Lord 2023. I think it's uh, July 9th or maybe 10th. And I'm coming here uh, today to recount my tales, to speak about the hardship that I've endured in my admittedly short life. I'm gonna roll up the windows just so I don't bother anybody. I do have neighbors. I don't want anyone to, overhear me. This is rather sensitive information. This video is made out to Coco on Discord, and I guess the rest of the Innowoods brethren, Desmond as well, and I guess whoever else may find it, Caesar. I'm sure you're gonna watch this eventually, one way or another. Cole Wilkinson, I still remember you, and I cherish the time that we spent together in high school. And of course, whatever assorted viewers, the YouTube algorithm may lead to this video. So, I guess I should start with some background. My name is Charles Richard Simmons, though my friends call me Charlie, and I'm going to assume that if you're watching this, we're friends. I am 17 years old. I was born on October 27th, 2005 in Phoenix, Arizona, though I didn't live there long enough to have any memories of when I stayed there. I remember spending the first of my formative years in Casper, Wyoming. I think I lived there until I was maybe 7 or perhaps 8 years old. And I had a couple of encounters with some folks, which that's well, I'm sort of spilling my guts here, aren't I? Anyways, I'll give you a hint, though. That's why I have such a hardline stance on homosexuality. Anyways, I moved to Oklahoma with my folks. I guess around I guess it would have been 2014, maybe 2015. I was 9 or 10 years old. We started off in your typical like upper middle or maybe middle class fare. 1-story house, backyard, 2 cars and a garage, and all the kosher things like that. And then my mom refused to do any sort of work, and eventually, since it was just my dad that was working to do any kind of cash flow, eventually we left that life behind, and we made a bit of a jump. We went from like being like, well, comparatively, I guess, like the shakers and movers of the world, they're up here, and then there's like lower upper class, then upper middle class, then middle class, then like lower middle class, and then there's all the poors, right? We were like up here, I want to say, or we lived like we were. We really weren't. We spent like we were. We pretended like we were, and then things took a massive nosedive. We moved to a trailer park, and we lived there for a little while. I think I want to say until like mm, maybe the fifth grade, something like that. Maybe fourth grade. It's all been, it's all such a blur, anyways. But I got a taste of what it's like, you know. Anyways, we got out of there after like a year or two, I think. Um, we got away from the trailer park, and we moved into a mobile home in a kind of nice neighborhood, but there were still plenty of meth heads, and I distinctly remember becoming acquainted with our local, like, I'm not just saying this, like he was an actual like meth head, like you could smell the shit on him whenever you like walked up to talk to him. Like I remember having whole conversations with him and stuff. It was great. Um, I guess around that time I was probably 12 ish, give or take a year, of course. Um, Around that time, um, I was um, kind of the way I am now, but of course, significantly more insecure and faggoty because I was 12 and I wasn't really established. If you're wondering what that noise is, I'm playing with my lighter. I don't really have anything. This is um, this is my fidget toy right here. I'll try and stop that. I'm sure it's probably grating on someone. Anyways, I was 12 years old and living in a mobile home and befriending all of my friendly local neighborhood meth heads. And I didn't really have very many actual friends, of kids my age. I've never really been the most social. I was super big into like Doom, like it was the new one at the time, Doom 2016. I sunk probably a couple thousand hours into that. Um, I was I really liked Just Cause 3. I loved Warframe because it was free and it was one of the very few things that I could afford to play. Um, and I had like a couple other games that I tried to get into, but my underdeveloped 12-year-old noggin just couldn't make it work. Battlefield, especially. I tried so hard to be good at Battlefield. Um, um, Plants vs. Zombies Garden Warfare, the first one, that was a ton of fun. Um, I'm trying to think. I was huge into Plants vs Zombies for like basically my entire childhood. Back whenever, yeah, the first time I had ever discovered like Plants vs Zombies was back in Wyoming. Actually, I think I was going to the dentist and he was like, "Hey kid, you play any phone games?" And I was like, sometimes. Um, and he was like, "Well, I bet you're gonna love this one." And he showed it to me, and I was like, probably 6 or something at the time, and I was like, "Oh, but zombies! Oh, they're coming to get me!" But in my head, in my spirit, in my very soul, a seed had been planted. You see, and I was an on and off Plants vs Zombies gamer for probably like 3 or 4 years, maybe longer after that. And I remember the very first time I ever actually beat Plants vs. Zombies, I was ecstatic. It felt like a weight had been lifted off of me because I'd been trying for perhaps upwards of half of my existence at that point. Um, that was ridiculous. Another similar thing was I used to be big into Kerbal Space Program. Um, and you'll notice I'm talking about like my formative years and my youth and my development, and much of it's really just me blabbering on about what games I played. That's not really me being distracted or anything. I really just was raised by video games. My folks didn't really, they kind of did fuck all in terms of like actually raising me. Uh, I I pretty much just sat in my room and I was either on my phone watching like Let's Players and like normie science YouTubers, or I was like behind my Xbox playing FPSs and boomer shooters and things like that. Which I mean, I liked it. I loved it. I was having the time of my life, fucking eating hot Cheetos uh, and drinking. What the fuck did I drink? I drank Blue Frosty, by the gallon sometimes, and that ain't no shit. They had like these specials where you could buy like liter bottles of Blue Frosty for $1, and I would go and I would buy like 3 or 4 bottles at a time, and that shit would be gone like within the day. It was ridiculous. It was absolutely absurd. That's why I was so chubby through like elementary and middle school. Anyways, I was, I was big into like internet culture in like the middle and late tens. I guess I still kind of am, but I don't really feel like it anymore. I don't feel like I'm mindlessly following the trends that I used to. I used to be a FNAF kid. I used to be like keeping in with all the theories and the lore and everything like that. Um, I was really big on the on the fan fiction scene, on that side of things, you know. Um, that's actually how I was first introduced to pornography at, say, I want to say 9 or 10 years old. It was it was a Golden Freddy X Springtrap uh, Yowie, oh, like slash fic. It was gay furry sex, gay furry robot sex. That was my first taste of like sexuality, and I'm sure everyone I talk to about it, I tell them the same thing. I am positive that that's had like a defining role in why I'm, the way that I am. Um, Especially why I'm so like uh, fucked up as far as like sexual and emotional intimacy go. Though of course that could also be the lack of an emotionally available or even really masculine father or any sort of thing like that. I mean, I'm sure it all like compounds. It all feeds into each other. But um, honestly, I never really knew what it was like to have folks that gave a shit. So I kind of um, I assume that it's because of the gay Five Nights at Freddy's fan fiction I read when I was 10 years old. I assume that's what it was. And I was already pretty heavy into like boomer shooter stuff too, as well. So of course I discovered H Doom, and that, boy, I tell you, the FNAF shit, that gave me like, that put that look on my face. I was absolutely fucking horrified, but I just couldn't stop reading. Morbid curiosity. It was peak morbid curiosity. I tell you what though, H Doom. That's what got me hooked on like the actual like porn masturbation thing. And I guess I started young. I started real fucking young. Um, Again, I was like, I'm pretty sure I was like 9 or 10 or something, and never having formed any significant relationship with anybody really. Um, Never having formed like those deep emotional, intimate bonds with other human beings that you're kind of supposed to have, that human beings are designed to have with each other, and then having it kind of thrown at me like that. Uh, Pardon. That's really, I feel like that's really what's kind of fucked me over the most. Because I don't know what it's like to be close to someone. I don't really know what any sort of healthy relationship looks like, even like paternally, or like what siblings are supposed to have. You know. Um, Anyways, I just don't know what it's like to be close to other people, and that's been a great boon in some recent times that we'll get to. It's going to be a long and winding road for us to get there, but we will get there as long as my phone doesn't run out of storage. Uh, so yeah, I was a pretty awkward kid. I was pretty heavy into internet subcultures, FNAF and like Undertale and all of the like early tens, mid tens, um, like video gaming culture. I was I really liked like the MLG type stuff, even though I absolutely fucking hated Call of Duty. Um, but I was big into the memes, and that was how I got like most of my my pleasure. That was how I got like any sort of like happiness or dopamine. Besides the porn, it was mostly being in these like niche internet subcultures. I guess they weren't really niche at the time, but I mean, they certainly didn't register as niche. They were basically my whole world. But like those and plus YouTubers like Vanos and H2O Delirious and Dahi Denogla. And I was never really a huge Markiplier stan. God, can you? This was back before the stanning was a thing. We just called it um, being a fan of something. Uh, I was a Jacksepticeye kid. And it feels weird to talk back on all these things like it's ancient history, but I guess it's kind of getting to be that way, isn't it? So yeah, I kind of struggled to make friends in school, yeah, because of all the aforementioned stuff with me not really ever forming any actual bonds, and I guess I didn't say this, but it's kind of implied that I substituted this crippling lack of emotional human intimacy through pornography use. And I imagine that that's just kind of what happened when you got close to someone was the shit in the porn that I looked at. Um, so I especially I sure as shit didn't have any luck with the girls. Um, that's not to say that I never had any opportunities, but I was just I was borderline scared of them. Not even borderline, I kind of was. I had one chick that she was coming on to me, flirting pretty hard and pretty heavy, and I just I shot her down because it was making me uncomfortable because I just didn't know what to do. I guess honestly, I just didn't have a clue. Of course, that was in the seventh grade. It's been years, years and years. It's been like 4 or 5 years, which that's nothing. And I'll be thinking about, my days as an edgy 17-year-old going on 20-minute monologues in his Jeep Patriot the same way here in 4 or 5 years, and I'll be mourning um, for these days. Probably not, but I'll be looking back on them with some measure of nostalgia, I'm sure. But yeah, so that sets the stage for the next couple of things, I think. Middle school was okay. Sixth grade was a nightmare. I didn't yet have the self awareness to realize that I was one of the weird kids, and I sure didn't have the balls to embrace it and really lean into it like I did later on. So I was just kind of like this awkward, annoying, not even lovable, not even like goofball status, just um, a weirdo screwball kid that didn't really get along with anybody. Um, didn't have any like real meaningful friendships. I had a couple of people who tolerated me, and we kind of shared a sense of humor, and we made each other laugh, and that was pretty much it. I feel like that's honestly still the way things are, but of course, I can't speak to that. That's not something you can like ask people. Be like, hey, do you just keep me around for the jokes, or um, of course they're gonna say, no, I actually really do genuinely care about you, but how can I don't. I don't know. I'd feel like a fool for taking that at face value. Um, so seventh grade rolled around, and I started making some headway in life. I got on the school's academic team, which, for those of you who don't know or weren't around or simply didn't care, which I honestly can't fault you for, academic team, it's basically like a quiz bowl sort of thing. Whenever I've explained it to people in the past, parents and friends and the like, they all go like, "Oh, so like Jeopardy?" It's basically Jeopardy, I guess. All the schools in the district go and compete against each other to see who knows the most, like meaningless bullshit, fun facts and stuff. And I was half decent at it because I read books. Books was another one of my little escapes when I was a young chud. I liked like Jurassic Park by Michael Crichton. That was my very favorite book, still is to this day. And because I couldn't find anything else like it, I also read like all of the Percy Jackson books. I mean, all of the Percy Jackson books, all of them that I could get my hands on. And then basically everything else that Rick Riordan ever wrote up until he started writing all that like faggot bullshit with what is it, the Norse gods and like all the shape shifting trannies and stuff. And then I was kind of like, well, this fucking sucks. And then I stopped reading it, and anyway, sorry. Anyways, I haven't done too much reading since then. I really should though. I haven't got the time or the focus. Um, the focus is the big thing, and also it just seems like there aren't as many good books. Just nothing really seems to, sink its claws into me and drag me in like it used to. And where was I? Right, academic team. So I kind of almost had a sense of community with that, but not really, because all of the people in there were. It was really weird because it was all like it was all the popular girls, which kind of threw me for a loop. Like it. None of it was like my people. My people, of course, being my fellow, um, like atomized, lonely, weird white boys. It was all like, it was all like the hip swag, um, like Latina and Indian girls who like had friends and shit. And of course, obviously, we never really meshed that well, as I'm sure you can imagine. But I don't think they even respected me for being good on the team. I think they just kind of tolerated me, and sometimes maybe laughed at my jokes, my antics. But of course, still do have a very like dry sense of humor. Um, I watched Monty Python when I was a kid, so I've got that kind of like. Um, I like to just do completely absurd, random bullshit, and lean hard and heavy into it, and act like I'm completely serious, and see if nobody calls me out on it, or just usually they don't call me out on it. Usually, people think I'm dead serious in whatever fucking stupid shit I'm doing. And I don't know. I thought it was funny, and that was enough for me. Or else I would have stopped doing it by now. I've got two or three friends that have picked up along the way, and they kind of realize. But okay, two friends, if that. But um, seventh grade was not a terrible year for me. I found those two friends that I was talking about earlier. Um, I met them through band, which I didn't really stick around in because it kind of sucked. um, but I was a band kid for a little while. Oh, it is way too. It is so early in the morning, man. I can hear the birds chirping. Anyways, I've already started. I may as well keep going, right? Yeah, I met Hunter and Gunner in the seventh grade, and I'm still friends with them. Of course, we're all growing up, so we can never ever hang out, basically. But those years when. Okay, well, it's always kind of been like this, I'll be honest with you. I was never in like. Well, okay, not never. Earlier this year, there was a period of like 2 months where I could frequently get in contact with Gunner, but that time is long past now. That was in like January through uh, May, perhaps. Pardon. And anyways, we hung out every once in a while though. maybe once every couple of months we would go out into Hunter's Woods, and we would go dick around and, I guess, see what kind of trouble we could get into. Uh, just go exploring and see what there was to see. Um, did loads of cool, crazy, wacky stuff. And I'd get into it, but this is for all my hardships and all the difficult things I've been through. That's what this video is supposed to be, and I'm going on like with 31 minutes of context. So I guess I probably ought to get to the meat of it pretty soon, or my phone really will run out of storage. And tell you what, Coco, I'll probably I'll leave a timestamp for you whenever I shoot the link to this to you over Discord. Whenever I actually start talking about like the real meaty, juicy bits, and that way you won't have to sit through half an hour or 45 minutes of filler. How's that sound? Okay, so 8th grade was pretty uneventful. I feel like that's when all the COVID lockdowns struck, and that's when I turned into a total coomer, complete coomer, because I was just fucking sitting at home, didn't have none better to do. Video games were getting boring. I didn't really feel like going out and doing anything. Maybe like 2 or 3 times over the whole lockdown, me and my buddies got together. And that's not to say that they were afraid of, because of COVID. That's just, we never really got together that much. So I didn't, couldn't really hang out with them. So I turned to pornography, I guess, just to have something to do with my hands, like Dale Gribble with his smoking. That's also when I became a Discord user. And for better or worse, most likely worse, but to hell with it, right? Actually, I'm gonna go on a quick tangent here. Allow me to get sidetracked. No, okay, that's a story for another day. Coco or anyone else that's watching this, DM me or leave me a message on in the YouTube comment feed or whatever, and ask me about that tangent, because it's a very interesting tangent, but it's not relevant. Where was I? Right. Okay. So I became a Discord user, and anyways, that's where that's where it all started. That's where the madness set in. Not really, but that's a milestone, right? I was 14, and I reached such like depraved depths of degeneracy. I reached like levels of coon brain that shouldn't be possible, right? And I would recount to you all of the things that I saw, all of the actions I took in all their gory details. But my friend, there are some things that are better left between a man and his creator, and that's about, I want to say all of my deepest, darkest secrets come from that time when I was 14 and in lockdown and didn't have anything better to do. And eventually it got to such a point where I realized, I just had to stop. The things had to change. I couldn't go on living like that. That was more of a subconscious thing, I feel like. And of course that would manifest consciously in the waking world by me trying to like numb that pain with more pornography. It was a negative feedback loop. the pain of pornography drove me to more pornography. um, uh, anyways, uh, I'm sure you'll get a kick out of this. Anyone who's in the know will, anyways. But it was actually a subreddit that saved my life. That really um, uh, turned the tides for me. It was called r/Coomer, and it was basically its entire shtick was that it made fun of pornography addicts and chronic masturbators and things like that. And it well, for one, it woke me up that that was the issue, that spending multiple hours a day and masturbating um, in in double digit numbers every day was unhealthy. And two, it gave me hope that I could beat it, that I could fight back, and that really there was anything worth fighting for at all. It gave me purpose. It gave me drive. It gave me a mountain to climb, a monster to fight and kill, and dine upon its flesh, and all that. But um, I spent the next year or so, I guess, pretty much still isolated, but I was now like, sorry, I was now like in the cave training, uh, fighting myself, trying to overcome myself, um, and that was my first like major character arc. I feel like whenever I was like 14 to 15, in between freshman year, or not, in between 8th grade year and freshman year rather. That was like the very first turning point that I had. That was the first time I ever tried to grow a pair and fight for myself. I started doing like some very basic like exercise routines. I would go on walks and things. I would do like high intensity cardio in my room, and let me tell you, brother, my family gave me a lot of weird looks for that, especially because I started trying to like take care of my diet and things as well, and so I put myself on this path of self improvement. And I told you earlier I really wasn't that close to my family in the first place, but this is the first thing I did that drove a wedge between them and I. Um, like my dad, um, I'm not saying this because I'm angry. I'm not saying this because I want to be disrespectful, or I want to get back at him in some petty um, emotional way. But my father, he was a very like irrational, effeminate, emotionally driven, ego driven man, right? And I don't know if he still is. I haven't talked to the guy in like almost a year now. But when he saw me like doing these things to try and regain some modicum of dignity, when he saw me like stop eating McDonald's and start going on walks, and um, whenever I was like doing the cardio in my room, and like he and my sister, my mother had been divorced for maybe a year now or something. I guess I probably should have said that, but it doesn't really matter. It does matter, but I forgot about it. But yeah, he and my sister could hear me doing cardio, and looking back on it, what I think it did was it burned in him so much to see somebody take accountability and to see someone like recognize their flaws and actively try to better them, that he had to like try and do something about it. And um, uh, the way he was at the time, he wasn't going to do anything like violent. He wasn't going to like lash out like he would have in a couple of years, and we'll get to that. But he he tried to like guilt trip me into like eating McDonald's and stuff. No, that's not even it. That's not even it. That's not at all what happened. I'll tell you what happened. Now that I'm talking about it, the memories are flooding back. He tried to fucking tell me he tried to tell me that I was depressed because I was trying to take care of myself. And how fucking backwards is that? He was gonna try and take me to the doctor and get me put on fucking meds. Meds. He wanted to get me as drugged up and docile as he is. Was, probably still is. Because I had the fucking stones to try and, escape that cycle of torment. Anyways, I was also taking cold showers around this time, and as I'm sure you can probably glean, I was practicing no fap, though my streaks were short, and I had to fight for them. I tell you what, they were really, really difficult for that first year, coming from like the chronic masturbator coon brain status that I was at, but I got through it. And anyways, that little fight that he had where he tried to get me put on fucking SSRIs or whatever other Globo Homo, soy, New World Order, mind control. That was the first nail in the coffin in my already basically non-existent relationship with my father. So continuing from there, it was kind of a slow burn type thing. I gradually got into some mild calisthenics. Of course, I didn't really know anything. I still don't really know anything about calisthenics. I'm more of a weights guy. But anyways, I got to a point where I could do 15 pull-ups in a row, and I can't even do that now. I got my first job as well when I was 15, working at a pizza place, which I still have that job, and I wish I didn't. I'm getting real sick and tired of minimum wage. But I guess this video is really dragging, and I can't cover my entire life story and every significant thing that's ever happened to me in one video, no matter how hard I try, especially not without writing a script. So I guess I'll just skip to the next significant thing between my father and I, because that's really been the number one source of conflict in my life, and he's been the main driver of hardship and I guess growth, though he would lament that if you were to phrase it that way to him. Let's see. The next, like, huge, like, absolutely, like, alters the course of my life, blow up thing that I had happen between, okay, well, I guess really at all, but especially between me and my dad, was, I need to lay more context first. My dad, I guess he was probably feeling lonely and disconnected and atomized, you know, he couldn't relate to his own son anymore, which I don't know if he ever really could, or if he just, I feel like if anything, he just imagined that he could. And so to fill this void, this hole in his heart, he goes off seeking a waifu. Not a waifu in the sense that I have. I'm not going to finish that sentence. Well, we can talk about that another day. But he found this Russian thought, this reptile, this creature, and allowed himself to be manipulated and gaslit and pussy whipped and henpecked into a shell, even of what he used to be, when I was growing up with him. And he became this woman's like thrall. He became her like puppet, and it was like gut wrenching to see. Like, it was actually fucking maddening to watch this man surrender himself to the control of this snake, right? And I tried to warn him, to like talk to him about it and like tell him, but I was 15 at the time. I was 15 at the time, and I think I was 15. I could have been early 16, but you know, that age range, right? And I had no clue how to word anything. Tell you what, I had the like diplomacy of like pointing a gun in someone's face. That was like my diplomatic skill. I was not a very skilled orator at all. Still not really. I have terrible communication skills. But I tried to tell him what I was seeing, and he was just like, no, you're being disobedient and respectful. I'm going to take away your phone and limit your contact with the outside world for the next month or 2 months, or basically until I feel like you've kissed my ass enough to warrant me giving you any sort of privileges back, which I never kissed his ass, so anyways, right, the next big fight, that's what that was just laying the groundwork for this next little bump in the road. This was closer to the beginning of my father's subversion. I guess my soon-to-be stepmother, she wanted him to get vaxxed. I'm sure you can imagine with what. And he, in turn, or perhaps she through him, you know, I don't fucking know, I don't really care, it doesn't matter. Point of the story is, he tried to get me vaxxed. I said hell no. I'd been having a pretty rocky relationship with God up to that point. That was the first time I had prayed in weeks or perhaps months. I told God, I spoke to him, I said something to the effect of, God, I've been a son of a bitch, and that's not your fault, Lord. It's entirely on me that I've been a faggot or whatever. Of course, not using such crass language in his presence, but I'm just summarizing. I need you now. I need you more desperately than I have ever needed you before. Please, God, just keep me from getting this shot. And he kept me. Uh, the Lord did keep me, but it was hard though. Um, it was very very hard. Um, but I drove home, and I didn't have a clot shot in me, and I was uh, and will be eternally grateful to God that He protected me from that. Anyways, that's when my dad's sort of like tentative, like uncomfortableness around me that started shifting into outright hostility and anger and loathing towards me. It wasn't like overnight. It was, but that was for sure when the shift started. Um, and and then I guess the next little bump in the road after that was after I'd gotten a concussion at school. Just dicking around playing catch with my boys. Um, and I guess in my state of concussed delirium, I started spouting off about how he was like choosing this temptress, this succubus, this reptile in human skin over his own son, and um, it was pretty cringe. I'll be real with you, but I was not really in a headspace to care at all. So I just kind of went off, and like I was like openly like weeping, like bearing my soul to him, like telling him how wrong it was, all that he was doing, by inviting this woman in, this snake in to devour his young. Um, and I was all like, "Hey, you don't love me. You love that fucking that Russian. She is Russian. You love her more than we do, because I was concussed and also just quite generally in a state of I don't give a shit anymore. And so he he gave like the weakest, like most half-assed responses you could ever imagine. Um, he was like, that's not true. I do love you, son." It was, and I'm like, nigga, at least just tell me. What's the point in lying if you're gonna do such a crappy job of it? And of course, it's almost certainly more nuanced than that, but I don't really care. I'm not gonna ask him, questions or anything, or not of him, anyways. That's the reason that's significant. The reason that I thought it was worth bringing up and spending like 3 or 4 minutes describing that to you was because that was like the exact moment that I kind of realized that he really honestly did not give a shit. That he really had sold himself out for a crumb of poontang, rather than try and foster actual, like, emotionally, spiritually intimate relationships with the human beings. Like his own children, perhaps. Um, anyways, that's when I realized that he was gone. He had been gone for a long while before that, but that's when it really like hit me. And that's kind of when I shifted away from like trying to make things work into like I don't want to say passive aggressive mode, but like malicious compliance. That's what I call it. I would do what they say. I would just do it. I would do it in ways to annoy the fuck out of them because they were all being faggot pansy sellouts. Um, they being my father and stepmother, of course. Anyway, and of course, it didn't start out like immediately like over the top. Things get like over the top. They will get over the top. In like 3 or 4 months down the story, but that's when I realized that I was kind of up shit creek without a paddle. And I guess just rolling right along. The next like big thing that happened that would be oh well perhaps I should tell you what set me off with that little incident. The reason that the whole thing started was because like on my way from getting checked out for the doctor for my concussion, um, I was all like, "You think you could take me to get some Wendy's?" And Dad was all like, "Oh, we ain't got the cash for that." And I'm like, "Where the fuck did you where'd it go? You spend it on your fucking your waifu, your Russian honey," which he did, of course he did, because he's a massive simp. I've heard recently that he actually sold her truck to buy her another Tesla, so make of that what you will. But um, anyways, that's how I went from like getting a concussion to accusing my father of selling out and 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 loving some whore more than his own son. Um, I was kind of thinking about that, and I realized that might have been kind of a non sequitur, but that's how that happened. Okay, yeah, actually moving right along this time, the next like big thing, the next and probably juiciest piece of drama to date in my entire life. This happened on May 26th in the year of our Lord 2022, and boy howdy, it is a day to remember in the history of Charles Richard Simmons. So, the 3 days leading up to that, I was absolutely fucking miserable. And I'll tell you why. I had, first, zero contact with the outside world. I hadn't had a phone in many months now. That was the first thing they took away. I had, two, been forced to accommodate my neurotic Russian stepmother and her two neurotic half-breed children. I had been forced to make room for them in my own home and accommodate their every whim and wish, and pick up for their slack, and watch as all of what should have been mine was turned over to them. And three, and the absolutely most insulting, most degrading part of all this was that I was doing my best. I was giving them all of my effort. I was giving them pouring out my very heart and soul to try and make things work, to try and keep things running smoothly, right? I was cooking for them. I was cleaning for them. I was doing everything that they commanded me to do. They ordered me around like a dog. And I didn't give them any lip. I didn't complain. I didn't so much as give them some stink eye, which they damn well deserved. I was being like the best little fucking slave boy that they could have asked for, and they didn't give me so much as a thank you. They didn't give me so much as a good job. They didn't give me fucking anything. They took all my shit and they asked for more. I would cook and they would complain. I would clean and they would go magically find more dirt in places that I'd already cleaned up. Everything possible. And it was like this for a week or so, maybe slightly less than that, but something like that, before I started just, it was terrible. It was terrible. You have to realize that I had very little in the way of escape. I had like some old novels, the Destroyerman series by Taylor Anderson, which I would recommend if you like fun, silly things treated seriously. But I was blazing through that, but it got to the point where I was just so fucking depressed, and like had such a burning, powerful self-loathing, and almost murderous hatred for these occupiers, these invaders that had come into my house and pushed me out and ground me into the dirt. But then, see what the good thing about this is, and this is a testament to the glory and the genius and the sheer redemptive power of my God, was that this desperation, this misery, this despair, like none I have ever felt before or since. This is what truly, well and truly, moved me to seek Him out, to pick up my Bible for the first time in months, maybe years, and that's when things started moving. For 3 days and 3 nights, I would open my Bible and I would read Psalm 6, I believe it was, on page 512 of my Bible. And I would just read it over and over and over again, and I would weep because I didn't have anything else to do, because I truly saw no way out except for just like going and stealing my dad's shotgun and blowing my fucking brains out. And on the third most intense, most miserable, most despairing night of all this, I couldn't sleep. How racked I was with this misery. I stayed up and I watched the sunrise, and brother, I tell you, it was the most beautiful sunrise I have ever seen. The sun rising up over the horizon, this mist coming off of a pond in my neighbor's nearby field, the cows drinking from it peaceably and braying to each other as they're wont to do. These like golden sunbeams like piercing through the tree I was standing behind, like framing my face. It felt like a promise. It felt like God was reassuring me, like He was telling me that I did have something to live for, um, and that He'd take care of me. That as long as I didn't give up, He wouldn't either. And I went back inside. I took a 20-minute nap, and then my father came and woke me up, and we went off to church, which is very funny that they required that of us, and yet they took away absolutely nothing. But that's most people, anyways. So after we got home from church, this is when it really pops off. This is where my brother, when I tell you this is like the single most profoundly impactful event in my life, I've never experienced anything like it before or since. We got home from church, and my stepmother found me in my little hideaway that I had secured for myself. And she told me, commanded me to put down my Bible, which I had been reading, and to go and pack my things for a church camp that they were forcing me to go to, so they could spend the week at home canoodling, and basking in each other's pride, of course, as well. But I told her to wait a moment and to let me finish reading the passage I was on, and she got frustrated, and she commanded that I go right then and there, and I told her again, no, let me finish reading this, and this repeated once more, and then she tried to rip the Bible out of my hands. She like reached and she just like tried to yank it out of my hands, but brother, I did not let go. I held on, and it was almost like she had been like struck or something. She recoiled. And she started like cussing me out in Russian because she's too much of a coward to do it in a language that I can understand. And she went and she ratted on me with my father, and he came in, and he asked if I had been disobedient to my stepmother, and I told him yes, I had. And he told me to get out of the chair, and I told him no. And so he grabbed me by my forearm and yanked me out of the chair, shoved me, threw me up against a wall, wrapped his hand around my throat, and started squeezing. And I talked to the police about this later that evening. They say that it wasn't forceful enough to count as actual choking or strangulation, but tell you what, it's the closest thing I've ever had. And it left marks. You could see little fingerprints where they were like digging in. So, well, whatever, man. Yeah. Anyways, pushed me and shoved me and threw me up against the wall, and wrapped his hand around my throat and started squeezing. And he said something that has been lost to time. I forget exactly what it was that he said. Um, but I told him this. I told him this. I looked him in the eye and I told him, while his hand was around my throat, God is watching. And, of course, not quite like that, but, I was like struggling to get the words out, but he like snarled and he like opened the door and he like shoved me through the door. It wasn't even all the way open, it was like halfway open. I like got caught on the door, and to keep from falling, I kind of like stumbled, and so he like shoved me again, um, and like kept going off about how I was like never gonna have like um any shit or anything, like any material possessions. He was he was like, you're never gonna have um a phone again, or you're never gonna have a car, you're never gonna have a gym membership, you're never gonna have a garden, you're never gonna have a dog. All the shit that I like took any measure of happiness or comfort in. And brother man, do you know what I told him? Do you know what I told him? I looked him in the eye and I told him I don't need any of that because I have God. And that just pissed him. That pissed him right the fuck off. And he said, "Oh yeah? Well then you can go pack." And so I grabbed my bags that I had already prepared, because I was going to a fucking church camp sometime, and so I just started walking. I just started walking down this um I think it's like mile and a half dirt road, and I caught a ride from a local man, a man who I had never seen before in my entire life. He said his name was Wayne, and he said that he lived just down the way. He drove a blue PT Cruiser. Homie, I tell you, I've walked up and down that road. I've driven up and down that road, um, plenty of times, and I never heard of a man named Wayne, and I'd never seen anyone with a blue PT Cruiser in their parking lot. So it may have been a different kind of neighbor. I like to think so, anyways. Of course, it's not my place to speak on whether he definitely was or wasn't. Um, Anyways, he drove me down to the end of the dirt road. I get out because I don't want him to get charged with kidnapping or anything. Um, or anything like that. Um, I, I'm like on the cusp of like crossing over from the dirt to the asphalt of the highway, and I look behind me, and my dad's just kind of sitting there in his truck, staring at me, watching me go, and I just keep on walking. Um, I I start walking down the highway. I could have walked towards the town or away from the town. I chose away from the town because I figured I just needed to get out of Dodge. I just needed to get the fuck away. So I chose to walk away from town. I I don't know how long I walked. I didn't have a watch or anything, but um, I walked long enough for it to be like really fucking hard to even take another step. Um, and then got I hitchhiked with a guy named Courtney, and he took me um, to about Hannah, Oklahoma, which is decently far, I think. And then I kept walking for a little while further after that. I almost got splattered by a semi. That was actually a really close call because it was like this elevated like dirt bridge sort of thing. Or maybe it wasn't elevated. Maybe there were just two really deep trenches on either side, so I couldn't like step off the shoulder of the road. And there was a semi coming, and boy, I could like feel the wall of air like trying to push me over, and then it like sucked me back in after the semi passed. It was actually really cool. And if I ever write a book where anything like that ever happens, I'm for sure gonna use that experience. Uh, you know. Anyways, kept walking until it hurt to walk anymore. Um, and I got another ride, this time from some people whose names I won't reveal because uh, I don't want to dox them at all. I don't want to perhaps reveal their identities. Certainly not when it might not be legally unwise to do so. But um, they drove me all the way to Henrietta. I told them my plan, which my plan was to hitch a Greyhound bus and go up to Kansas and live with this Discord guy who I was fairly well acquainted with, and whom he had told me that I could come crash at his place if I ever needed to. Months and months ago, back when I still had a phone, of course, but um, because I'd been so out of the loop, I didn't know this, but the guy was fucking dead. Um, the guy had a heart attack like a couple of weeks, within a couple of weeks of this all happening. The dude was fucking dead, and I was gonna go and ship myself off to go meet him. So that didn't end up happening. God's providence being what it is. I wound up just hitching a ride back to the home of the man and woman who had picked me up, and I told them the same story that I'm telling you now, of course, highly abridged, maybe only the last 25 or 30 minutes, if that, of course, but uh, they fed me the best ribs I've ever had in my entire life. Um, they did their best to make me feel at home. They they were trying to think about like everything they could possibly do for me except send me back. They were talking about like calling up like priests and things to send me to stay with. But I'm not Indian, as you can, probably tell. So I don't really get any benefits here in Oklahoma. None of the cool stuff like that, anyways. But they tried everything, man. They did a lot for me, and I owe them my lives because without them, I probably would have wound up in some kind of human trafficking uh, rigmarole, you know. That or I might have just become roadkill. So, anyways, what eventually wound up happening was about 2 or 3 a.m. They called the cops, told them they had to run away. Told them that they didn't want to send me back to my folks because my folks were abusive, controlling, manipulative, narcissistic pieces of shit. The cops said, okay. They sent two dudes in two cars to come pick me up. I went home with the sheriff deputy. Well, not home right away. I went to I don't fucking know. I guess the police station. It's a small town. We don't really even have a police station. We've got like a sheriff thing. Basically, I told him the same thing that I've now told you and the people who gave me the ribs. They were pretty much just like, okay. And they didn't really give a fuck. They opened up a case with DHS, and they were like, oh, if he does it again, we'll really have it out for him. And I'm like, oh, thanks, guy. That helps a lot. That helps a hell of a lot. And so now, no, my father and my stepmother come to pick me up, and they woo the officer. They're all like, "Oh my gosh, we were so worried. Is he okay?" And officer was completely fooled, which I can't blame him. Whatever. He seems like he had different folks than I did. Anyways, that I tell you what, that shit turned right off whenever I got back in the car with him. I tell you, the waterworks just like turning a faucet, just and they started like tearing into me, roasting the shit out of me. It was my fault that my dad kicked me out of the house. It was telling him that God was watching him as he choked me out. That was me manipulating him. They tried to pull the children should be obedient to their parents thing on me, and I told him, and you can look this up for yourself. I believe this is in Ephesians, that immediately after it tells children to obey their parents, it tells parents to love their children. And my stepmother, she was all like, "What? What kind of Bible are you reading?" And I was like, New King James Version. And then they were all like, of course, that was talking back. And anyways, it was just a gigantic clusterfuck. And it never stopped being a gigantic clusterfuck until about early August. That morning, the morning of the 27th, I guess it would be, since all of this happened during the day of the 26th. Or they kicked me out the 26th, and I came home the 27th, right? I think that's when things shifted from this sort of like nuanced, like we don't really hate you, we're not really out to get you, to we're doing everything in our power to make your life miserable, and we don't care about hiding it. Because I think in their minds, after that point, it was justified. Anyways, loads and loads of stuff happened after that. But I'll skip over that because it's all kind of samey. but it really, ultimately, what it did was it culminated in a suicide attempt in perhaps either late July or very early August, maybe early August. I feel like, kind of, because yeah, yeah, because school was about to start back up, and they were all worried about getting me enrolled. And anyways, what really pushed me over the edge there was um, they'd been we were staying at an Airbnb because the house that they were renting had some kind of sewage fuckery going on, and the landlord or the tenant or whatever, um, she was all like, "Oh, okay, well, since you can't use the shitter, why don't you just have my personal Airbnb while you wait for it to get fixed or whatever, right?" So we stayed there for a little while, and it was kind of nice because there was a television in the living room, which is where I slept. Obviously, my sister got the bedroom, um, and they went out on one of their like sissy frou frou dates or whatever, and I got to watch television for the first time in months, and well, I didn't watch television. I watched a YouTube video, a Sam Hyde YouTube video about outcome independence, actually, which is ironic considering what I'm about to tell you. But um, anyways, I shut that off, and honestly, it's all pretty blurry for reasons I'm sure you can imagine. I think it was either that night or the night immediately following um, that they came home, and they like they demanded like they started doing all this weird bullshit. Like I was laying in bed. I was obviously already like ready to go asleep, and my stepmother walks in and sees that I'm wearing jeans, and she starts bitching about that, and and she's like, "Go change right now. You're not wearing jeans to bed." Of course, in her fucking comically thick Russian accent. Um, uh, and and that's it, it's different from the way it was because she stops caring about even hiding it. She doesn't even bother hiding it at this point. She starts like ordering me around like a dog, um, and then which of course that's not new per se, but um, then she okay. Let me finish one thing before I start on another. I'm really bad about that. She tells me to like take off my pants and put on some shorts or whatever, and I do that, and then she goes and she tells me to put my pants in with the dirty laundry or whatever, and then she like commands me to like take some melatonin so I can go to bed, which I was already going to do, and then to really just give me that extra like kick in the nuts, she calls me a good boy, and she has this like sneer, and she's got this like glint in her eye, like she's like fucking getting off to it, which she probably was, and that's when I just fucking broke, dude. That's when I just like something like a switch flipped in me, and I was like, if I have to choose between living with these people who treat me like an animal, who think of me like a pet, who order me around and call me a good boy, if I have to choose between that and having no life at all, I would rather have no life at all. And so, I climbed into bed. I waited 5 minutes for them to leave, and I decided that I had had enough, and that the only unfortunate thing about what I was about to do was that I wouldn't be able to hear their screams whenever they walked back through and discovered my dead body. Now, while I had the spirit, I lacked any of the know-how to actually follow through with it, as you can clearly see, you know. The main thing, what I was actually like hinging my suicide attempt on, was the 2 bottles of melatonin that they had left out. One which was like 3/4 of the way full, and one which was completely full, like sealed and everything. I took all of it. I took like 1.5, 1 3/4 of a bottle of melatonin, and I don't know how many milligrams that is. It's a fuckload of melatonin. And I thought, I'm just going to overdose on melatonin. I'm going to put myself to sleep. And when I wake up, I'm going to be with Jesus. And I will never have to worry about being called a good boy ever again. And you can't overdose on melatonin. You can't. It's physically impossible. I don't think anyone has ever overdosed on melatonin. I didn't know that, of course, or I wouldn't have bothered, right? I would have tried something else. But I thought you could, and so I did. Anyways, I took one of their like steak knives that they had. I guess that the tenant had, since it was her Airbnb. And you know, I did a bit of sawing on my wrist. Gave myself a nice little barcode, and I didn't do that for attention or anything, which that's what they said I did it for. I did it because I was just so desperate to have any sort of feeling of like control. I was so desperate to feel like I could do anything at all, to feel like I had any sort of agency, any sort of control over my own body, over my own life, that I decided that, fuck it, whatever works. And that worked. You know, it was my hand that dragged the blade across my wrist, and it was my blood that came out because of it, and it made me feel like shit, honestly. It didn't really make me feel any better, but I did it. Anyways, the melatonin started kicking in before I could really get into, the spirit of things. As far as that goes, I just climbed back into bed, and I thought I was gonna fucking die, straight up. I thought I was praying. I thought it was gonna be the last conversation I ever had with God on this earth, and I told him outright, I was a fucking retard, and I was making a mistake, and that I was sorry for being too much of a pussy to see it through till the end that he had ordained for me. And I woke up, and it was a beautiful sunrise. This, glorious, majestic orange sun peeking over the horizon. Golden beams of sunshine piercing the blinds, like framing my face. And I picked up my Bible, and it had sort of a strange aroma to it. Kind of flowery, almost. Which is odd because it's a leather Bible, and it's never really smelled like anything except for leather. Except for that day, after I tried to kill myself. And I felt the most sincere, genuine peace I have ever felt. I felt so much comfort. I felt love. And that's far from the only miraculous thing that's happened to me. Far from even being the only miraculous thing that's happened to me. Even in that week of the week that I tried to kill myself. But I still remember that. And before I'd went to bed, I'd wrapped a black t-shirt around my wrist because I didn't want to make a mess, and I didn't want it to be too obvious that I'd slit my wrist or whatever, right? Which that came in handy later. My sister, she was the first to find out. Saw all the cuts on my wrist, and she started freaking the fuck out. And that's kind of when I knew that it would have been a huge mistake if I had actually done something that would have killed me. Anyways, my sister, she's 2 years younger than I am, and she's a girl, and she's a young girl at that. I can't really blame her for not having not really understanding, not being on the same wavelength as I am. But she went and she ratted to my father, presumably. I don't think she would have ratted to my stepmother. She doesn't like her. Not to the same extent that I do, but she doesn't like her. Anyways, then they started bitching at me because I tried to kill myself. And they said I was doing it to be an attention whore, and I was doing it to try and get people against them, which they were paranoid motherfuckers too. They thought I was getting into contact with people on the outside somehow, and turning people against them. How, I don't know. They took away my phone months and months ago. I didn't have any sort of internet access or anything like that. But all my other older sisters and and all the rest of the family was all of a sudden turning against him for some reason. Of course, it was my fault, but um, anyways. But yes, the suicide attempt was me trying to manipulate them. Um, I don't think it was a week after that that they decided to ship me off to my aunt and my uncles, and that was a whole little character arc for me. But that was a godsend. That was deliverance. That was that was being freed. I tell you what, when they told me that they were getting rid of me, I felt a weight lifted off of me. I danced. I danced. Oh, well, I danced in a spirit. I didn't actually dance. Oh, but my heart sang, I tell you. And I damn near wept just because of how joyous I was. Anyways, this has dragged on for far too long. It's probably something like 4 a.m. Uh, I guess I'll summarize it for you. From the most intense parts of it were like from March through August. So we'll call it March through August. I was isolated. I was closed off from the world. I had no contact with anyone um, outside of the outside of my tormentors and my little sister and my grandma sometimes. I was reduced to an animal, to a beast of burden. My only value was in manual labor, and I got shit for that too, even when I did it like they wanted me to. Um, I was manipulated and gaslit and and bullied and harassed for my every waking moment for any reason at all, and many reasons that didn't make any sense and had no basis in reality. They would frequently invent things just to pick on me for, random shit. Um, I was only physically abused the one time on May 26th. Um, if he could have gotten away with it, he would have. For sure, he would have. He wanted to a lot. Um, took all he could, all the strength he could muster, not to swing at me. One time, my stepmother literally had to, like, grab his hand to restrain him from striking me, but that was only because DHS would have been on their asses in a heartbeat. And then they would have been fucked. And I feel like that's how God would have delivered me from all that if I hadn't tried to kill myself. And that probably would have been better because that way my sister could have gotten out of it too. And yeah, anyways. For something like 75 or 90 days, I was immersed in the most intense uh, mental and spiritual turmoil I have ever experienced. And I was I hate to say this word because everyone's abused, but I was I was uh, fucking verbally abused. I don't know if you can say if mentally abused makes any sense. I guess all abuse is mental abuse, right? But um, they did everything they could to break me down, to reduce me, to to castrate me and make me like my father. And God delivered me. But I'm kind of here now. All of that, it's been almost a year now. This all happened in 2022, and I'm still kind of dealing with the repercussions of it all. Uh, I used to have nightmares about being trapped with my dad and my stepmom, and every time I would see like a black Ford, or not, a black Dodge Ram. My dad drove a black Dodge Ram. Every time I saw a black Dodge Ram, I used to have like a tiny little heart attack because I would think maybe it was them. And I've since I've drifted away from God, and that's honestly the saddest thing about all this is that you know I would have such intimate knowledge of and close encounters with such a mighty, loving, merciful God, and after all that, I would allow myself to fall away from Him. That that I would just give up, and it it kind of hurts seeing myself become like almost normal in this way. Uh, I went to the psych ward last year, November of last year, because my aunt found the journal that I had kept while I was still with my father and my stepmother. And she read through it, and she had me taken away. And I was only interned for a week because I didn't give them anything to latch onto. I didn't tell them that I wanted to kill anybody or anything of that nature, and so they were like, "Oh well, guess you're fine." go on out, live your life. So I did, and I don't know. I'm just kind of here now. I'm a lonely, broken, rudderless young man. Uh, Probably traumatized out of my gourd, but I don't want to stop to acknowledge it because then I'm going to have to deal with something, or I'm going to have to deal with it, do something about it, and I don't have the time for it. I'm too busy working, trying to basically just trying not to be a burden to my grandmother, who I'm living with now. I turn 18 in October, and I don't know what the fuck I'm gonna do. I guess I'm just gonna go work at a factory or a Walmart or something, and hope it works out. I I think I may try and stay single, try and stay celibate for the rest of my life, just because someone who's as like emotionally unavailable, someone who is as hollow, someone um, whose goods are so thoroughly damaged as mine are. Frankly, I can't possibly see myself ever being a good husband or a good father. And I like kids. I feel like I even do okay with them. But I think if I was ever called to anything, I feel like it was um, to live for Christ and ultimately give my life for Him. People ask me what I want to do, and I tell them that I want to be a paramedic or whatever. Really, I want to be a martyr. I want to be strung up on a cross, or set ablaze, or some combination of the two. I want to be made to suffer for my God. Sorry, pardon that voice crack. But I want to die honorably so I can earn a cushy spot in heaven. It's in Revelation, I believe. But all those who've been beheaded for their faith in Christ, they've got a special spot waiting for them. Funny, it also says that they're crying out for justice, for Christ to bring retribution on this evil world. And Jesus says, "Not yet, because there are more yet to be added to your number." And I used to pray every night that I would be one of those. That my head would be lopped off and collected in a basket, and my soul would go up to Christ, and I would reign victorious. Or rather, I would serve under Him for eternity. Whatever happens, I'm still, eyes not seen nor ear heard. But anyways, I think I'll be waiting a little while for that. So until then, I can really only give my best. But it just kind of feels like I'm spinning my tires, Swimming as hard as I can just to tread water, sprinting as fast as possible just to stay in the same spot. But You didn't ask for my current headspace. You asked for the hardship I've been through. So, anyways, this is it, Coco. I'll probably, uh, I'll probably shoot you a timestamp and help you to skim through all the jibber jabber. If you listened to this at all, thank you. And I hope it was worth your time, or in some way corroborates your own theories on the nature of struggle and overcoming it. You take care of yourself, friend. Okay. This is Charlie signing out.